The chief here wishes everybody
No, what was it? Because I think it's just.
wishes it was to the point where we can just skip that shit altogether. How about it?
It's stupid, it's utterly stupid. I'm thinking today, like about that award.
Well, that's federal. That's federal. They're all within federal budget.
Yeah.
I got the survey.
What is the good news?
Oh, you did? Before that came. Like here?
Yeah.
Yeah, we get rid of it.
Hey, Bill. Apparently Monday.
You want this quarter? I can move.
Why don't we call
Yeah.
her?
If you want this quarter, I can move.
No,
That's cool.
But that's not what it is.
You got your best side, Dave?
They're testing to see if we could.
Well, I missed you.
Okay, Michael's here, so we're a few minutes late. I want to call the meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Active Development Study Commission for Tuesday, October 22, 2013. Time is 6:05 p.m. We'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll, please.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Ms. Eckers?
Here.
Mr. Clarence?
Here.
Mr. Green is absent. Mr. Foote?
Here.
Vice Chairman Fiore?
Here.
And Chairman Hippo?
Here, we have on the agenda I guess it's public comment. Is there any public comment for any items on the agenda session tonight? Note that is made available and there is none, please. We are then adopting the minutes of September 24 and October 7 meetings. Those were circulated to the group electronically today. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Heather and
Second.
second by Bob. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yes. We have, Kristen, is it Denny or Den?
Sure.
Great.
Danny,
Kristen?
Denny?
Denny?
Thank you.
pretty sure.
She initially was going to go first, but then indicated she would love to hear Mr. Foreman's presentation as well, so. And since Michael's here and we're almost ready for him, we're gonna put her on the phone. Likely will be up and
Hi, this is Kristen.
Hi, Kristen. This is Linda from the city of Altoona. We just started our meeting, and we waited until we got to the point where Mr. Foreman is going to speak. Can you hear me okay? Hello? Kristen? Hello? Oh, there you are. Oh, okay, so I have you on the speaker, so let me try it again. Okay, let me try the speaker again, just a minute, please. Okay? Hello?
we're dealing with a low
That's our
bidder.
speaker. Yeah.
Pick her up, talk to
Speaker's
her.
on.
Do you want to pick her up and talk to her, and tell her we'll call back on my cell, and we'll just use my cell.
You still there?
Let's see if I can find it.
Are you on the cell phone, Kristen? She's on the landline. And are you on the speakerphone as well? She's on the speakerphone. It should just be the, yeah. Hello?
Yes, hello.
Okay.
Kristen, hi, it's Wayne Hippo. It sounds like we have the technology worked out.
We're trying.
Oh, yeah, it sounds pretty good now, if you can hear us.
Yeah, there's a lot of buzzing in the back. Hello?
Yeah, we're still here.
Are you still there, Kristen?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right, if you have real trouble hearing us, just let us know, and I'd be happy to call you back on a cell phone.
We might have to do this stuff because you guys are really distant
Okay, we'll call you right back.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. I think so.
Confidence is good, I like
We
it.
use it at work because it's similar phones.
Sure you, I don't need it on board. Or do I?
You done this?
Something right up.
Three.
These are one way, you have, you can't, they need electronic instead of circular.
She might have done better if she had put it on.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Well, how do you, what do you do?
There's
Push
a
the,
speaker there.
push the phone? Push the little
Yeah.
phone?
And you'll see speaker there right below the.
Hi, this is Kristen.
Hi, Kristen. Is that better? How's that?
It's much better.
Okay.
Great. So we're gonna turn the meeting over to Mr. Foreman, and obviously if you have questions or you need to interrupt, just speak up, Kristen, if that's
Okay,
okay.
wonderful.
Thank you, and also thanks for agreeing to participate and help us out with this tonight. We really appreciate it.
Not a problem.
Go ahead. Welcome back.
Well, thank you very much. I assume that I'm supposed to go over the latest information that I provided to everybody?
In general, we're moving to the phase of the study where we're analyzing home rule and its potential benefits.
Okay.
Linda's done a real nice job of identifying other communities that have home rule charters. She's provided us with copies of those charters. We're still in the process of digesting those.
Okay.
And I guess to some degree, a lot of questions have come up where, specific experts in the room, not everybody has the answers. So to the degree that maybe you can fill in some of the blanks from some of the questions that they may have had, or points in the right direction to find those answers as well.
That's fine. The questions that you're referring to, are they based upon the information that I've just recently provided to you? I'm just trying to get a sense of,
What would that be that you provided to us?
The mayor.
yes, yes, the
That's
different
different.
forms of government, the characteristics of what each of the respective forms are relative to what we'll call a strong mayor form of government, the council manager, strong mayor versus city manager form of government, and then it goes into what's called a strong mayor and city manager form of government, known also including a business administrator, and then there's kind of a middle ground listing a managing director, which uses a strong mayor and maybe other alternatives with respect to the form of government that you may also want to consider. And then I also provided information on salaries of mayors and managers, city administrators, and business administrators for home rule municipalities that a large number that were either east or west of the city of Altoona, both that are council manager and both that are mayor council. And then some additional home rule municipalities that are in Pennsylvania that I didn't list above, that maybe are much larger in population also. The ones that I did list relative to council manager or mayor council, I provided the population so you can see some comparability to the city of Altoona. And then I also provided some general comments about maybe things that you may want to think about with respect to prospective framing, if that's the direction you want to go, with respect to the framing or drafting of a home rule charter. And I'll just look at it or speak to it just generally. Maybe this will be a segue into further discussion or questions to maybe hone in or focus in on maybe more of what you'd like me to speak about. And that is, when you look at home rule charters, you have these choices of forms of government, whether it's council manager or mayor council, with a municipal manager or administrator within each of those forms. And the question that you want to look at and consider is where does the power and authority reside? Within which branch? Is it within the executive, elected executive, or is it within the the elected legislative branch. And that really is a central core feature within any home rule charter, because either way, those are the elected officials that make policy and make decisions. And regardless of which form is chosen, it is executed, it's administered, it's implemented through the appointed manager, administrator, or I guess in some charters, a managing director. But the titles are less important with respect to what you call this chief administrative officer, when you are really looking maybe more broadly at where do you want the power to reside, and how is that power to be shared between an executive and a legislative body. And if you're looking at an executive, and examples that I provided, you'll see with the mayor-council forms of government, you'll see those mayors are mainly full-time individuals with larger salaries than the salaries of the council manager forms of government. And within the mayor-council forms of government, they are more of the chief elected executive that have power to appoint and power to remove the administrator, the manager, the managing director, and they have the power to also appoint board members, to boards, commissions, and authorities. They have the power to appoint department heads. They have the certainly authority to remove, and they also propose the budget. They propose ordinances, whether it's the administrative code that from time to time it's adopted by ordinance and from time to time is amended. They also propose a financial management system, accounting, a centralized accounting system. They may also propose a personnel system, a merit-based hiring system, and personnel policies and procedures. They may also propose other types of policies and procedures relative to other financial management activities, whether they're budgetary policies or accounting policies that I already mentioned, or cash management policies, or debt management policies. It's policy and procedure related that comes out of that chief elected executive, the mayor, so to speak, in these examples, but will always be adopted by the legislative body. So, that's one half of the brain, so to speak. But then on the other side of the brain, or the branch of government, you would have under the council manager form of government, where the legislative power certainly would reside within the council, and the execution or the executive power to carry that out would reside within the manager, the administrator, so that it would be the council that would certainly adopt and put in place it'd be the policy-making body. But in a sense, it would be the manager, the administrator, that would propose these initiatives in concert with the governing body. But it's always going to be the governing body that's going to be the enactment body to put these into play. Now, with respect to either form of government, you have this firewall, I'll call it, between the manager administering policies and procedures, implementing policies, executing these policies and procedures, and the elected officials that what I'll call a non-interference provision that you will see in a lot of charters, that the governing body will be the entity to communicate with the manager, with the administrator. Not individual members of the governing body should not go to a manager administrator and interact per se to carry out directives. It would be the governing body as a whole, through consensus, through governing body majority vote, instituting policy and directives through the governing body action, that the manager or administrator would carry out those directives, again, rather than individual members of council going to that manager or administrator and making directives of that individual. everything goes through the manager, through consensus building and majority action of the governing body to carry out the directives of the governing body. Whether, again, it's mayor council or whether it's council manager. So you have this firewall that the manager, in a sense, has that insulation, we'll call it, that everything goes through the governing body as a body, not individual members. Now, I'll stop at this point to see if anybody has any questions or you want me to clarify something or elaborate on something that I mentioned at this point.
On this list, how many are in Act 47?
Well, let's go down the list of the communities that I listed, mayor, council, or council manager. Okay, the city of Clairton, Allegheny County is Act 47. The city of Farrell, Mercer County is. City of Johnstown, as Kristen would attest to that, and in Cambria County. City of Newcastle and Lawrence County is Act 47. I think the city of Nanticoke in Luzerne County is. Moving on here. Hazleton, yes, the city of Hazleton, thank you for clarifying that, and Luzerne County is as well. Going on to the next page, the city of Pittsburgh and Allegheny County is Act 47. The city of Scranton and Lackawanna County is Act 47. But that doesn't mean that it's all inclusive of Act 47 communities that I included. There may be a few more that I didn't catch on this list that are not home rule.
Have any of them ever emerged from Act 47?
Not yet. There's some boroughs that have come out, but not cities. But again, cities take on some other unique characteristics that the ones that came out maybe didn't have. But to answer your question, those cities have come out.
Of the cities that you list, I'm making sure that there aren't some cities of a certain population that have been missed, but it seems that Johnstown is certainly the largest city that has the council manager form at 21,000 population.
Is that coming at me, Mike, or is that coming?
You can feel free to answer, Kristen, but I'll answer as well.
Okay. As far as, Johnstown is no longer a city, it's a home rule municipality, but there's colleagues of mine that are in various cities, throughout the Commonwealth, and also there's many, municipalities much larger than Johnstown, with much larger cities that have municipal managers.
Are they home rule?
They're not home rule.
Okay.
Actually, Upper St. Clair and Mount Lebanon are the two that are ringing to me.
But they're not cities. They're
not cities, they're both home rules.
right, but they're townships, and Mount Lebanon's a municipality of that at one time was a first-class township.
Correct.
But you're right.
But actual cities, I'd have to look, and by the time Mike's done, I should have a better answer for you.
Okay.
Okay, I think that actually addresses the fundamental question I had, is I'd like to see whether you're termed city or municipality. I don't think there's a huge, there are some differences, but not for what I'm thinking of. And because when we look at this list, Altoona would be a standout, that we're way kind of beyond the average in terms of size, without having a mayor council form of government.
That's an astute observation.
And so in this list, the way that it's written, it kind of makes us stand out. And so if there's other political divisions that are of our size or more comparable to us that have the council manager form, I'd like to see what those are, at least to see them listed here, so that maybe we're not such a standout.
I pretty much covered the council manager forms of government based upon a list of cities that I have that came out of one of our publications. I think the Cities in Pennsylvania publication that we have on our website. I'm going to try to, pardon me?
What is the population of the graduate? 46.
But I think I think you're correct, that Johnstown may be the larger. I think that's an astute observation, yes. But then you have some others that have other characteristics that may be council mayor, that are larger in population, that are in other parts of the state, but you're correct,
Okay.
generally speaking, yes.
Could we get a list of what those are? Would it be I mean, is this something that you would
Are you saying this list is?
quickly be able to get?
This list is fairly inclusive. I'm gonna look real quick, I mean, I think Harrisburg, well, they're optional, they're under the third-class city code optional plan. I'm looking for that list real quick here. I'll probably put my hands on it before I leave here. There's a couple that I didn't include, even at the very end, under the other home rule cities in Pennsylvania not listed above. I think I brought the list with me, I just have to find it,
Okay.
of other third-class cities.
Most of these that are listed mayor council, that's a strong mayor,
That is correct.
and they use a manager.
Most do, yes. Unless it lists in the list, unless I put in the list otherwise where there's no mayor. Well, of course, if it's mayor council, they have a mayor, but there are some council managers, maybe 2 or 3, that don't have a mayor. Like the city of Sharon, now under home rule council manager, they no longer have a mayor. Just as Hermitage, council manager, they don't have a mayor. But again, obviously, the mayor council, the mayor is the key chief elected executive. And those are mainly full-time, highly salaried mayors. As I note here, I'm a FT full-time. The only one that's not is Carbondale City in Lackawanna County, all of $1,800. Their mayor council, their home rule, but their charter has stated that that salary is $1,800. But you can see all the others.
You don't have 800 people.
Which one's that again?
Carbondale.
Carbondale on page 5, 8,891 people. Their mayor makes $1,800. But
Well, they
their
also
population-
have a pretty small population.
Exactly. So it's normally, in proportion to the population, just as you have, well, again,
Well,
city.
according to Wikipedia, take that for what it's worth, Altoona is the 10th largest city by population in the state. So of that list, the only people that have this would be Harrisburg, which you mentioned, Lancaster,
It's in here.
Bethlehem,
I think it's in here.
Scranton,
Scranton's in here.
Reading,
I think Reading's in here.
Erie, Allentown,
Both in there.
Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh.
Yes, they're all in there except Harrisburg.
Okay,
So to
so
your point-
Harrisburg has what form?
A third-class city optional plan like
That's
Altoona.
currently.
They're not home rule.
Okay.
They have a strong mayor
But
council.
but in that, you can have a strong mayor.
They
In
do.
third-class city code.
Yeah,
so
Harrisburg has
they're-
a strong
they
mayor
are,
council
so they are
like
mayor.
Altoona.
Okay.
So all the
And what about
cities-
Bethlehem?
Bethlehem.
The next closest out there, York and State College,
Behind us.
Let's see, I saw
What's York?
Bethlehem in here.
11,
And then what's
Bethlehem
ours?
has
43,000.
74,982. Mayor council, that's an optional charter. Before they actually had that statute blend in with the home rule law, they're again 74,982 people. Their mayor council, and their mayor makes $90,500.
That was Bethlehem, right?
Correct. City of
Okay.
Bethlehem.
So, and do we know what York is? They're really close now.
Yeah,
so.
43,000 or 46.
Who's next?
State College, York, 42.
Okay.
Wilkesboro,
Maybe I did
41.
include York.
Chester, 33.
So all the ones above us are home rule already except for Harrisburg.
And strong mayor.
Well, they're strong mayor. They may not be home rule
Yeah.
because they could be third-class city code, but everybody of our size and larger is strong mayor.
What does that mean though? Because, hey, Kristen, is Johnstown strong mayor?
No, it's not. It's a city manager, lead
Yeah.
mayor form.
Where's the mayor?
For their half
The
percent.
mayor is talked about, but here, the way that our form of government is, the mayor is a member of the council, and he's the chair, he's the council president essentially, if you said that, but he's in charge of running all the meetings.
He's the ceremonial head and official representative of the municipality. So that's not a strong mayor.
Like here.
Yeah, correct, yeah.
The point, I guess, that you were making, Richard, was that every city bigger enough, though, has a strong mayor. That's where the standout, even many of the ones below us also.
Okay, in other words, we would find in their charters or whatever a more robust description of the mayor duties, or are we basing it just on salary?
Very, very robust duties, I
You
think,
would
because
find
they're
that-
the main person in charge.
In the home rule charters, you're correct, you would find a more elaborate, detailed description of the powers and the responsibilities of a mayor under a mayor-council form
Strong
of
mayor.
government.
And in almost every case, also a city manager or managing director or director of administration, some other partner.
You would see an elaboration of those job duties, powers, and responsibilities as well in those respective sections of the home rule charter, as well as an elaboration in more specific detail in the administrative code. Absolutely.
So there's only, to my recollection, there's only one individual who came to our group who said we should have strong mayor in the city.
Correct.
Tyrone Mayor.
Well,
Tyrone
our
Mayor.
mayor. Our mayor.
Well, our mayor.
Well, I think that Tyrone,
But Dave, I didn't,
manager
I'm sorry.
has some things to say as well. She said that they actually push some of the responsibilities off onto the mayor, and that she relies on him for quite a bit of.
And I would distinguish that, I don't want to interrupt Bob, but I would distinguish what I was hearing them say, is they're saying they don't want to lose the professionalism
Correct.
of the city manager.
Yeah.
And what we're saying here is, in all of
So
these
nor both.
cities, they still have managers who are sort of the professional oversight. What I think most of them are afraid of, in my opinion, having been there and talked to them, is they're afraid of the old days coming back when somebody, happens to get elected and he's
They play politics.
appointed the finance director and he barely graduated high school. And all of a sudden they've got a new political boss as the finance director. I think they appreciate the professionalism of a manager in the day-to-day administration of the city, and I think that exists in all of these cities. The whole question is, should the elected body have some more power in terms of policy and representation throughout the state?
Michael, what's been your experience? Which have been the more successful of the groups? With those with a stronger mayor, or those with a manager that's kind of in charge?
You're referring to the council manager or the mayor council? I've seen success in both forms. Again, it really depends on the culture within the community, the buy-in on the professional management, and the support from the governing body for that, and the working relationship between those two entities. I've seen it work both ways more successfully. And sometimes you can see where you have an individual, you have a mayor that brings in his or her own person, because you have one person appointing a manager administrator. So that's one genre. That's one option. Under the council manager, you have a group of individuals that have to build consensus to come to some agreement point to hire a professional. So it's a group appointment versus a singular appointment. Can you see the distinction? So I've seen it work both ways, but it all depends on the culture in the community and the buy-in on the position, the support for the position, and the working relationship that you have. But again, with the singular appointment, it's the mayor's person, and council has to work with that person. And a lot of times, the council has very little say-so in whether or not that person stays or not. It's up to the mayor, because it's the mayor's pick. And the mayor appoints and removes. And council doesn't necessarily have that consent. They may or may not have that consent to the appointment.
Are there forms of government where the mayor makes the choice, but it must be approved by council?
If it is written into the charter.
Are there examples where people have written that?
Yeah, there's some in here.
Yeah, okay.
The five charters that were listed in the email sent last week.
And I assume that some places have where a council can do like a vote of no confidence or something like that and effectively remove the administrator.
You'll see hybrids. I don't know which charters you're referring to. It'd be educational for everyone to see. I mean, I don't even know what charters you're looking at. But that's good that you've got them already too.
Linda did a great job giving Chris.
So, Michael, I like your response because what you said was it all depends. Whether you have strong, weak, whatever, it all depends. And that's what's up to us.
But the good news is we have the flexibility to go to the full range, as you're saying. So I think that's what we're hearing is the law allows us to do what we feel
Under home rule.
under home rule would be best for
Okay.
the city, a hybrid anywhere in that spectrum.
And I'm thinking, does it have any impact at all on either an increase in revenue or a decrease in expense to have a strong mayor, weak mayor, things like that?
Well, there's a potential for that position to cost something, barring any other benefits by having that person be the head. You could be writing into a charter an added cost of a new full-time position. Yeah, it's one consideration.
I think, I've probably expressed this previously, but if you run a city like the complex business that it is, the people that run it need to have a body of knowledge which is comparable to the demands of the organization itself. And unless there were specific criteria and expectations of the background, knowledge, and expertise of the mayor, yeah, I know, that's why. I mean, elected officials can vote like board members, like companies have board
Yeah, but
members.
that's not fair, Dave. That discounts the full-time mayors that exist and perform well the whole way across the country, let alone the Commonwealth.
Everything's dependent upon the context, yes. And that's what I would say. It might work somewhere, but it might not work here as well.
One of my complaints that Richard did a good job pointing out even again to me is that for a city that's, I used to say the 9th largest, I guess back when I was in office, we're still the 9th largest city in the state, we don't act like it. You get what, sometimes you have to lie in the bed you make, and it's been my view we need to start acting like a big city, because we are. And our only chance to maintain it or grow it is to start acting like one. And in my view, under that current system, that's a restriction on our ability to truly be a player at the statewide level and have some serious input at the statewide level. And be treated in terms of as a player throughout the county.
You mean without a strong mayor?
By not having a strong mayor, correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you entertain, do you know by chance, any places where they do have a strong mayor, do they have a residency requirement?
Most of them.
I'm going to say most do have a residency requirement. However, sometimes there's flexibility built into that it may be waived at the discretion either of the mayor or the governing body, depending on what the language in the charter is.
You're asking about a residency requirement for what position?
The manager.
For mayor, I was thinking for mayor, actually.
The mayor has to be.
The mayor has to because of, you have to.
Well, are you thinking that, or are you thinking like a 5-year resident?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Is it somebody that just moved into town last week, or is it
No,
somebody that's
to run for elected office in Pennsylvania, you have to live in the community for at least a year, you have to be a registered voter, and cities, you have to be at least 21 years of age. But for managers, I thought you were referring to manager, I misunderstood. Managers, again, it's flexible on the part of the governing body. Some write it in, some home rule charters write it into the language of the body of the language of the charter. Some leave it to the discretion of the governing body. Some write it into the administrative code if it's not in the actual charter itself. And sometimes the language in the administrative code leaves it to the discretion of the governing body to enforce it or not, or to make it air miles within the municipality. That again is the flexibility of home rule, because it's your document. It's not necessarily coming out of Harrisburg. And I've seen it different ways, depending on the charter, and depending on the perspective of the drafters of the home rule charter at the time. And that can always be changed at a later time by a ordinance being put up as a referendum to amend the charter at a later time.
That does bring me to another question. I think the first time you came and spoke, we talked a little bit about referendums, and just some more questions on that. Under our current form of government, that is not allowed, correct? Under the option third-class city code that we are under, there's no way for referendums to be placed on the ballot.
Well, the governing body has the ability to
This was a
place referendums on the law, I mean, on the ballot that are currently existing in law today.
Could they put a referendum to change the form of government other than to create a commission?
Well, that's under the existing law.
Yes.
But but I think really what you're asking is that
What more freedoms for referendums is there under home rule than we currently have?
under home rule, citizens can petition the governing body to place questions on the ballot that aren't necessarily in statute today, and the governing body would be duty-bound to place it on the ballot through the county election
But
office.
that's not the case under the current form of government.
That's correct, because the current form of government doesn't provide that ability, because there's no provision in the optional third-class city code for you to do that.
Okay.
That's one option, I mean, that's one latitude that home rule provides for you.
Kristen, if I can interrupt maybe and ask you, has Johnstown done much with the referendum process?
No, there hasn't been a lot. There's only been one since I've been here, and that was to reduce the amount of council people from 9 to 7. And that referendum did pass.
You know, in the past, did they do a referendum vote on tax mill caps?
No,
Or you
no,
said-
they did not.
No.
They did, Kristen, before, I think they did it under Jeff Silka.
Okay, they may have, but not, to my knowledge, in my tenure, they
Yeah,
haven't.
okay.
No, they lifted the caps on EIT and real estate under Jeff Silka, so that you could have a higher millage and I think a higher higher resident for EIT.
And when they changed the council numbers, I'm assuming that's part of the charter that allowed for a change as they would have seen fit. In other words, the charter would have allowed them to go maybe from 9 to 11 or 9 to 7, but the charter was flexible enough that they could change the size in either direction.
Correct. Correct.
Right, and they
Definitely
could've-
was flexible enough. And Mike, I'm not sure what happened under Jeff Silka, but every year here, we go to the Commonwealth for the EIT. Or not, excuse me, to the courts.
You sure
And
that's,
you definitely would remember better than me, you were around, you know,
yeah, but that's under Act 47, that's not under your home rule charter.
right.
Yeah, okay.
Um,
Now, you could have
in any
reduced,
event, yes, there was enough flexibility, you know, to do that. And, you know, really the one thing that I can tell you is study a lot of people, our charters online, you know, study a lot of people's charters, and this is your time to kind of create your government and your city the way you want it to be. But it is nice that the fact that you are able to amend this as time goes on.
So their charter, 1212 on page 27 of 29 is a referendum. It sounds pretty simple.
right, initiative and referendum
Yeah.
section, yes.
Yeah.
And most home rule charters have that. Now, Johnstown could have reduced the size of its council under the former form of government it had under the third-class city code optional plan or under its current home rule charter by referendum.
So, can we back up just a little bit about the citizens' ability to put a referendum on the ballot? Is that because people place it in the home rule charter, place that
Correct.
ability for citizens to do that?
That's
Okay,
correct.
so it's not just a fundamental thing, it's that people put it in, it's not forbidden, in other words, so
Correct.
people write it into the.
What would preclude a referendum? How many signatures would you need to have?
Well, the home rule charter would probably want to clarify or state specifically the minimum number of signatures you'd have to have on a petition for citizens to come to you to request that a initiative be placed on a referendum. Normally, it could be 5% of those that voted in the last gubernatorial election within the city of Altoona. That's normally what it would be, maybe to place the question on the ballot for home rule. It's 2% for those running, like, I think you had to have 2% of those that ran in the last gubernatorial election. But I think it was 5% to actually place the question.
Okay.
But you pick the number, I mean, you're the drafters, but I'm just giving you some benchmarks. Some make it a higher threshold, and some make it a high threshold to make amendments to the home rule charter. But initiative and referendum, you want to make it reasonable. You don't want to make it burdensome, because courts may find that to have a chilling effect.
Can the charter require any sort of supermajority on the election side? that a referendum can only pass with a
A supermajority.
2/3 vote, or,
I've never seen that.
I'm not suggesting it's a
I'm
good
just
idea
saying-
or not, I'm just trying to find out.
I'm just saying, I've seen that with certain votes on council, maybe to incur debt under a home rule charter, or to raise taxes, for certain issues.
Do all homeroom charters typically have a referendum mechanism?
Yes, I believe almost everyone I've seen does,
Okay.
because it's all part of the local home rule and local constitution, and providing what I'll call residual powers for people to be able to interact and have greater access to their governing body, rather than
Yeah.
under the current form of government.
And then also, in most cases, the council has the ability to put a referendum on
By
without
ordinance.
to change the something within the charter.
Correct, by ordinance. That's correct. You can do your other referendums by ordinance. Citizens do it by petition. That's correct. You got it.
So, okay, I guess I wasn't thinking of that. I was thinking the citizens referendum. So, I think the other, where the council votes to put it, on the that seems like an obvious to me. So do most home rule charters offer the citizens mechanism of having a referendum?
Yes,
Okay, all right.
both. Citizen initiative referendum and governing body referendum.
Okay, all right.
To make changes not only to the charter, but to maybe add provisions, and it may not necessarily be to the charter, but to maybe take on certain functions or responsibilities.
Okay.
I'm just generalizing.
Yeah, right. What page did you say that was on there?
27,
Oh, okay.
to the bottom.
I know I heard that one.
Well, the whole section on initiative and referendum is Article 12. Johnson?
I don't know if we're going to move on to another topic yet, or if we have anything else on form of government or referendum.
Go ahead.
Some of the questions that come up on the form of taxation, and some of the things I've noticed paging through about 5 of these charters is some of the charters specifically address taxation in a very specific way. Some of them don't even mention it at all and must leave it up to ordinance or administrative code.
When it's silent, that means you have no caps.
No tax and no direction as far as do you want to have a split between an earned income tax and the property tax, or some of them it sets forth those. Can you speak a little bit about any experience there?
Well, the first handout that I provided to you, based upon my due diligence research, I found that there was a court case out of Lackawanna County, and I'm quickly trying to find that part. Maybe it's this right here. No. Well, I'll find the handout, my first handout that I provided to you probably back in August. Okay, I made reference to taxation and tax rates and the like.
And we heard some conflicting opinions as we've moved forward through all of our testimony to this point, so I guess,
And I'd want you to get a legal opinion
okay.
on this, because the case came out of Common Pleas Court, Lackawanna County, based upon a Lackawanna County home rule charter that was placing limitations on millage for the county's real estate rate. And the county court in Lackawanna County said, based upon a provision in the home rule charter law, that you cannot place limitations on rates of taxation for real estate and earned income under home rule. And that,
Even within your charter, you can.
correct.
Okay.
And that decision was appealed to Commonwealth Court. And Commonwealth Court upheld the Common Pleas Court decision. So I would say you want to get some very clear
Upheld the
legal
decision,
direction.
you cannot
You cannot
cap
place caps on tax rates for real estate or earned income taxes.
So there's a chance that any of these charters that have a provision like that could be challenged, and that provision.
Yes, and I'm not an attorney, I'm just
Yeah.
saying that based upon my research. of both the Common Police Court in Lackawanna County and the Commonwealth Court upholding the Common Police Court in Lackawanna County, saying that tax caps are not permitted. And I'm looking real quick now for the provision in the Home Rule Charter law, that makes reference to that.
Is that a recent case you're saying?
I think it was about 10, 12 years ago. Let's see, maybe it's right here. Taxing power. The governing body shall not be subject to any limitation on the rates of taxation imposed upon residents. And I am quoting, I'll read it again, but I'm quoting section 2962, called Limitation on Municipal Powers, paragraph B, called Taxing Power. I repeat, that's why you want to do research. Section 2962 of the Home Rule and Optional Plans Law, Limitation on Municipal Powers, paragraph B, called Taxing Power. And I'm reading from the last sentence of paragraph B, Taxing Power. The governing body shall not be subject to any limitation on the rates of taxation imposed upon residents. Now, those are taxes imposed upon residents, which normally is a real estate tax, and earned income tax, and normally even maybe a deed transfer tax. So I would do legal advisor, do some deeper research on this relative to the drafting of a Home Rule Charter if you're going in that direction. Because I've seen in Home Rule Charters the same thing you've seen. Caps or limitations. And maybe, if I hope to find that handout real quick, I may have put a year on that court case that I made reference to in that handout. It was my first handout that I provided to you.
When it says on residents, I mean, I guess we're all kind of assuming that means residents is of that authority. But I'm wondering, does it? I guess what I'm getting at is there a limitation on commuter tax? Or is there a limitation somewhere else?
The sentence I just read to you, the sentence before says that home rule municipalities cannot place a tax on non-residents. They can't tax non-residents above what's already permitted under Act 511 of 1965 as amended, which is, I think in anybody's case, at this point under the new Act 32 amendments, which is 1%. If it doesn't go to the home municipality where the person lives first, where the obligation is initially. If where the person lives doesn't have the tax, then you would get that. But then we have this interpretation issue about, the higher rate first goes to where the person lives.
So what act is it that states the 1%?
Act 511
Okay.
of 1965,
Thank you.
as amended. It's, again, Act 511 of 1965 is amended, known as the Local Tax Enabling Act. The Local Tax Enabling Act.
Okay.
And municipalities can impose a 1% tax on non-residents, but that's normally what you're going to pay to where you live.
This is what you're looking for?
That's what you brought.
Is that my first handout?
That's it.
July 1st. Yeah, look in there.
I have.
No, that's not the first one. I'm sorry, the second one. Let me look for it.
As amended.
Sorry for not being as organized as you are.
No, well, we have a lot of paper we have seen
I
in
know.
a very short amount of time.
Wait, I think I found it. Here it is. Okay, it's August 5. Or is it August? Maybe July 16. It's July 16. But let's see.
Halloween.
There you go, Kristen. Go with us.
Well, I hope the Christmas okay.
You okay, Kristen?
Yep, I'm just waiting for you guys.
Okay, I have it here. It's on page 4. If you can find it, it's to you from me, dated July 16. Home Rule Charter information requested. It's where I list a whole bunch of stuff, like list of counties and municipalities that became home rule, since 2002. Well, maybe I'll first wait a minute, see if you found it. Listed July 16.
It was an email.
Yeah, it was, I think, an email that I gave to Linda that she gave to you, I guess, for your
Okay.
July 16 meeting. I will read from page 4. Under City of Clariton, it says, there is a prohibition against tax rate limits under the Home Rule Law. And again, section 2962, paragraph B, last sentence, which reads, the governing body shall not be subject to any limitation on the rates of taxation imposed upon residents. This provision is upheld in a Commonwealth Court decision of 2006 appeal, the Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas decision, where a taxpayer is challenging a county millage rate increase in which the charter requires voter referendum approval. Commonwealth Court ruled that this Home Rule Law provision supersedes the county charter provision, thus prohibiting tax rate limits on residents. So that's what I think you really should do some research on.
Well, that's actually even a little bit different. That says not only a cap, but that even says that if someone were to put in their charter that a tax increase has to go to referendum or has to be approved by the voters, that even something like that can't be done either, right?
That's
so-
my reading of it too, but I'm not a
Yeah.
lawyer, so I would get legal guidance on this, ladies and gentlemen.
Another area of taxation where we've had some confusion is, I guess, under Act 47, the commuter tax came to be here in Altoona. We had initially heard that commuter tax would not be able to be continued under home rule, but then I think towards the end we heard that it would. Do you know for sure?
It would.
We would be able to.
Do you concur with that, Kristen?
Yes, I absolutely concur with that. You know, Johnstown has participated in the commuter tax and will hopefully continue to participate in the tax, but please be aware that what Mike said, you know, everybody thinks that that 41.1% will go forward to you, but not if, you know, like for you guys, you probably would be looking at Logan Township to see if they have an EIT tax.
We're always looking at Logan Township.
And in that case, the 1% would go up to Logan and you would only get the 0.1. Correct, Mike? Am I saying that right?
Yeah, the first obligation is to where a person lives, and any rate left over would then go to where the person works.
Right, so when you're preparing your budget, and if you're looking at the commuter tax, please keep that in mind. Because, you know, some of my elected officials weren't aware of that, and were assuming we were getting the whole 1.1% of commuters. But no, we definitely, you know, it's a benefit of being in Act 47, and it's something you should definitely utilize if you can.
But, so, whether we're under home rule or the current option plan, that does not change now that we're under Act 47. If we do emerge,
Mike would have to answer that, but I believe that's a component of 47, not the home rule, correct?
but if we did emerge
correct.
from
That's
47, that would,
And it's also a component of the Act 47 recovery plan, and the goal of the city and the Act 47 recovery plan team is to reduce that rate so that the city's no longer dependent on the non-resident EIT. You know, to come out within, 5 years from this year. Ideally, that's the plan.
So is it your understanding that right now with the commuter tax, we may not be getting 1.1%? Is it still the 1% would go to Logan Township and we're getting the 0.1%? Kristen, you, and from what you said, it sounds to me like it changed. It went from 1.1 to 0.1%.
that was just a misunderstanding.
No, what I was giving the example of, and I don't know what Logan Township, if they have an EIT or not, but if the commuter lives in a community that already has the EIT tax, they would receive the 1% and you would only receive the I'm saying, for instance, if you let 1.1 as your set commuter tax,
Okay.
you would only get that 0.1.
What's in excess of what they're,
Yeah, what's the rate that's left over after you pay to where you live, because that's where their first obligation is.
Correct. Yeah, that was the example that I was using. I hate to do this to you guys, but I'm trying to prepare for a council meeting tonight. Is there any way, Mike, would you mind if they ask me any questions that they had specifically about city management, administration, things to that effect before I jump off?
Go ahead.
Yeah, great. We definitely would love to hear from you. Do you have any comments you want to offer first, and then we'll ask questions?
Just basically, I was, kind of listening, and I would have liked to go first because he's really the local government guru around here. He's been around for the good, the bad, the ugly of how most of these things have played out over the years. The biggest thing that I want to now, and I've worked under, boroughs, the borough form of government and the city form of government. And no matter what you guys do, as long as you have people who care about the community and want things to work, it's going to work. City managers are definitely, I do it for a living, but I consider it an asset. You want to train professional when you're looking at a city manager, an administrator, a director, whatever. You want somebody particularly who's been trained in this field as members of ICMA, which is the International City Managers Association, or APMM, which is the Pennsylvania Municipal Managers. The big thing that you want to look at is having someone who's trained in this field and trained in government. Not to say that you can't bring somebody from the private sector and have them learn. My finance director came from the private sector from GE, and he's fantastic. There was some learning curve, but, with the right support system, they can learn. There's no two ways about it. My job is to make your jobs as the elected officials easier. And that's what you should be looking for in any form of a managing director, business manager, period. It's somebody who is going to work with you to push your policies forward and to move the administration forward and keep going. I personally, in our charter, we do have a residency requirement for me. I really don't mind that. I have, mixed feelings. The only problem it does is it narrows your candidate pool. That's just something to keep in mind, and I also kind of feel like it's my calling that should live there.
Do you have residency requirements on police, fire, and highway department
They
employees?
were able to get those out in their contracts.
I'm sorry, they're out of the contracts now.
They were able to get those taken out of their contracts over the years.
So
So
you don't-
we don't have it for any other employee except for the city manager.
Okay.
And like I say, I can see that both ways. And especially for emergency personnel, you should be close. But we all know how arbitrators work, so we'll save that for another day's discussion. So really that's to your, what you guys feel, and I think that most councils tend to go towards having the residency requirement. And it's just the only thing to keep in mind is it lessens the ability to recruit people. As far as how it works, we really don't have many problems. I'm fortunate that I have a good council here that they understand, that they have to come through me, and that things have to kind of be a majority of council's approval, or so I'm fortunate that I don't have any kind of wild guns out here that make my days harder. Over the last couple of years, they've really learned to work well together, so it makes my job a lot easier.
Kristen,
Yeah.
what do you see an end to Act 47? Can you see Johnstown getting
If
it
you
out?
want me to be very honest, I'm sure you guys have the same problems that Johnstown has, that every third-class city and older municipality in this whole Commonwealth has, and that's legacy cost. I'm sure you're having, we have dwindling populations, but we still have the same amount of pensioners, healthcare costs, and debt costs. Now, Johnstown, I'm faithfully optimistic. Our last debt payment, as long as we don't start getting into the refinancing game, is in 2017. But it still does not help the pension liabilities that we have. I've got 150 people paying into our pension and 350 drawing pension payments. So any way you put it, we're upside down on those pensions.
So Kristen, how has home rule allowed you to either increase revenue or decrease expense?
Well, I obviously was not here during the inception of this, but what I can tell you is that it allows you to professionalize your force and your administration.
So in your mind, based on your understanding of home rule, you have as a manager more flexibility to run the city more efficiently?
I would say definitely, because you're going to start to professionalize your force.
What does that mean?
Who's working on your administration every day. You know, you guys know the political climate of what would work and what wouldn't work up there. But I'm sure whether you're going strong mayor, weak mayor, council, whatever form you're going, whoever's job is going to be there, it's going to be easier if they have he or she is able to have professionals behind them taking care of the daily administration.
Kristen, is there something about your charter operating under home rule that you would recommend we take a careful look at? Maybe you would change it if you had a magic pen and could just change it yourself. A particular area that you would have us draw attention to that we haven't talked about already?
And I don't even know, and Mike might know better, it's not, you know, the charter has never really given me any heartburn. You know, these are the rules of engagement. The only thing I can ever think that was kind of drawn into question, and this is, you know, the devil's always in the details, is that the charter doesn't spell out if we use Robert's Rules of Order, and that at one time was a point of contention. So, you know, it's kind of one of those devils in the details. The only other thing that's ever been difficult in my time is when, as time goes on, the difference between third-class city employees and what the pension liability is, and what the pension is prescribed to be, versus when you're doing it through the labor contract and you're no longer governed by those third-class city rules. So, you know, for example, your fire department, the things that are prescribed in a third-class city, your rules of operation with the fire department will no longer be enacted. And pension liability is one I can think of, and their scheduling is the other. And I don't know if you guys have bargained that out, or if that's still in your scheduling. But those are two things I would pay attention to when you're changing. Mike, have you seen that problem anywhere else?
With respect to parliamentary procedures and Robert's rules?
And also with the changing in shifts that are prescribed, shifts in particular in pensions for third-class city police and fire departments.
That's always been handled through the collective bargaining process as well as pensions.
Okay, and that's really, because I have a couple cases sitting out there that are, most of it was not through bargaining, but the pensions are still kind of an issue.
So am I correct to assume that the third-class city code sets a sort of a floor to those negotiations that goes away under home rule, and the bargaining, you know, sort of doesn't have that base level that's prescribed by the third-class city code? It's more of an open negotiation.
Is when you're doing this, make sure to do pension plan documents at the same time.
Can you repeat that?
When you're doing this, when you're switching from a third-class city to a home rule, if you've changed anything in your collective bargaining, make sure to change the plan documents at the same time. Because what's happened here is we changed, 20, 25 years ago, and they didn't change the pension plan documents to reflect the home rule charter change.
Okay, well, that would be advice, I think, just in general.
Yeah, just make sure everything lines up. That's the only heartache or anything the only thing that's given me any heartburn since I've been here. And that's it. Otherwise, it's really clearly mapped out what the expectations are.
Has Home Rule done anything with your, I guess that's an unfair question, but tell me about your revenue stream, your sources of funds on taxes. Are you predominantly receiving your revenue from real estate taxes still, or do you know the percentage breakdown approximately?
Not offhand, I don't have my budget documents in front of me, but I mean, I don't think that the home rule makes a difference either way. I think that your ability to retain and collect is what matters.
Well, you were given greater taxation flexibility when the caps were lifted under your home rule charter.
Correct. So, I mean, I think that's obviously a benefit of going into home rule.
Has the county of Cambria reassessed as of late?
No.
No, but they changed the assessment ratio to 100% about 10 years ago, or 8 years ago. 50 or 25% to 100%. So it basically just had municipalities lower the millage rate. But they didn't do a countywide reassessment, no. It was before Kristen became manager.
Any other questions for Kristen while we
Just
have
one,
her?
Kristen, as city manager, how do you get decisions made?
Concerning,
Well, if you want to do something, like you want to buy some office equipment or something like that, do you go to the mayor, do you go to the whole council, do you go to a committee? How's
you
that
don't
work?
go to any of those. That falls between myself. You know, once the budget is set for the year, it's my job to stay within that budget.
So
So
does,
if I need office equipment and I didn't put that in as a capital request or put that into the equipment budget, I don't get it unless I go back to council and get an amendment to the budget.
if the mayor or one of the council members comes to you and asks you to do something, do you do it?
Depending on what it is, okay? I would say because you're an elected official doesn't mean you don't get to complain as a citizen, okay? So if the mayor sees a pothole and tells me about it, I consider that part of him being a citizen, not just being the mayor.
But, and if the mayor comes to you and says, my sister needs a job and I'd like you to do that, that's not part of your package, right?
No, I'm going to tell you what my role for everybody is, no matter who it is, whether it be my priest or my mother. I will give anybody an interview. I don't promise anybody a job.
Girl.
Okay, Kristen.
And that's kind of my pet peeve. You know, I think we're all out of the employment business. We just don't have the funds to do it anymore, which we did.
Kristen, would you like to see reassessment in Johnstown or
Oh,
Cambria County?
you would. I mean, wouldn't you? And I'll do them?
Yes.
We're dying for it.
Okay, that's, you know, that would be I don't know if I can say an easy fix, but I think we would all like to see that.
Is there any reason why the city of Johnstown has not sued Cambria County to force that reassessment?
You know, I don't think it's ever, I don't believe the political will is there for one. You know, have you sued Blair?
No.
We're thinking about it.
We're not the council though, we're just the commission.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're just here making, in all honesty, for the city of Johnstown, if I could have the one wish, which of course Mike hears everywhere, we're at, I think, 56% nonprofit land now.
Full of the heart.
And if I could have one wish even before reassessment, it would be that there be some legislation pushed through, which will never happen in my lifetime, that even if they said nonprofits had to pay 15% of whatever their assessed value is.
Kristen, has your council considered taking over the reassessment duties for just your city?
No, we've not. That's not been discussed. And frankly, right now, with the amount of staff I have, I don't think we could do it.
Nor could you afford it,
Right.
because you'd have to pay for it.
Yes, exactly. But if you know, the nonprofit status is really what's putting us, because also those nonprofits are what are driving my cost. If it was a nonprofit that was just, you know, a little Salvation Army, you know, giving out meals at lunchtime, that's not the case. We have quite a few alternative schools, quite a few rehabilitation facilities, community correction facilities, you know, public housing, and these are all driving my public safety costs.
So, any other questions for Kristen? So we'll let her get back to work. Kristen, I can't tell you how thankful we are that you're taking time out and helping your sister city across the mountain.
Another time I
as we
wish I was able
explore
to drive up tonight, but I'm trying to finish reviewing my Act 47
December, we'll vote on whether or not to proceed with home rule, and probably at that time decide whether or how much outside help we're going to retain to draft the charter.
Yeah, because there's just, although we all think we're the experts, it always helps to have an extra set of eyes that may see the legal ramifications of certain decisions.
Great
More
advice.
so than we do locally, but, I don't believe, in my heart of hearts, I do not believe this would be a bad way for you to move forward.
And that opinion means a lot to us, so thank you.
Okay, well, thanks a lot, guys, good luck.
Same to you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Michael, in Pittsburgh, I believe they're doing this. Somewhere, some entity in Pittsburgh is filing a lawsuit or just administratively did it to start taxing nonprofits. I think it's UPMC or something like that.
Well, the city of Pittsburgh filed a lawsuit against UPMC challenging its tax exempt status.
Okay.
And there was currently a hearing on it, I think earlier this week or late last week, in Common Pleas Court. And the central question now is put before the judge between UPMC and the city is, does UPMC actually have employees, or do its subsidiary health facilities actually employ the individuals? Is it UPMC that name the employer, or is it the satellite facilities that employ the individuals?
All right, well, the main reason I'm asking is, it's nice to know exactly what it is, because I knew there was something going on there. Was that a decision that was made administratively from the mayor, or was that something that had to be done through a council? Actually, I was looking on here, and yeah, they do have a council. Was that something that had to be a decision done by council? And the reason I'm asking is, she referred to the political will, that they wouldn't have the political will in Johnstown, and we've kind of heard that phrase here many times before. Speaking of a council, a mayor, you elect a mayor, and then sometimes it's not a political will or not, is whether the person ran for that, with that as a reason they were running or whatever. So do you know who actually made the decision there to do
The
that?
mayor made the decision.
Okay.
It was the mayor's decision and the mayor's law department and maybe even a private law firm engaged by the city to actually file the lawsuit.
Okay, so that might be a good example of where a strong mayor and their power really does provide some difference versus what would have to be the political will of a group of people.
Well, again, the city of Pittsburgh's a strong mayor, council form of government. They don't have a city manager per se or a city administrator. They have deputy mayors that are delegated certain powers and responsibilities. But this was the mayor's call, and he made the decision to do this.
They also enact a special tax on beer.
That was the General Assembly that gave authority to the county to levy an alcohol tax up to 10%, which I think today as we sit here, it's at 7%. It's a drink tax.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that's
That's the
countywide, not
county,
just
yes.
citywide.
That's the county, not the city. But it's certainly levied within the city as well as the county overall.
But the county of Allegheny did reassess.
Correct. And it went into effect this year. But that's separate from the drink tax.
Right. But they did do a reassessment.
Yes, they did.
Are any of those dependent upon being home rule municipalities?
The drink tax or filing suit against UPMC?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. It's the power that the General Assembly, number one, gave to second-class counties, whether they're home rule or not, to levy an alcohol, drink tax.
How many second-class counties are there?
One, Allegheny. That's based on population. Counties are classified by population. Philly's the only first-class county / city, and Allegheny's the only second-class county. But because City of Pittsburgh technically first was a second-class city, where they had a strong mayor, council form of government, and the home rule charter kind of mirrored that under strong mayor council, they could have done it under a second-class city code model, where the mayor would have filed suit. But they did it under a home rule city, as in 1972, when the charter went into effect.
Just for our clarification on taxes, the EIT tax is not an option in our current form of government here in Altoona, but would become under home rule.
What do you mean an option, because you levy it now?
Okay, that's what I'm saying, so we're not really changing,
No, you're not,
it's
I
just
mean,
lifting limitations is basically.
you're lifting the rate.
Limitations.
Yeah, I mean, right now, correct me if I'm wrong, city council members, you levy a real estate tax, an earned income tax, local services, okay, the real estate tax is property owners. An earned income tax is people that live here that earn a wage, a salary. A local services tax, the city levies is people that work here, whether you live here or not. There's also a business privilege mercantile tax, which is paid by people that have a business here, and that's a gross receipts tax. I think you just recently got rid of the per capita tax.
No.
Still have that?
Yeah, we took our portion of that from the school district.
You're still taking that?
Yes.
Okay, that's $5, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's known as a head tax. And that's people usually between the ages of, what, 18 and 65? And again, that's for a person that lives here. And you have a D-transfer tax when property is sold. I'm not sure, I missed, a mechanical device tax.
And the pension commuter tax.
And the commuter tax.
And an amusement tax.
And the amusement tax. But that's mechanical device tax. So those are the menu of taxes that are levied by the city of Altoona. And those
Under
would
the home
stay.
rule, the flexibility comes in, the caps go away, so the balance between them is more flexible.
Yes, now the caps would go away from real estate, potentially, hypothetically. May change for, cap-wise, may change for real estate, earned income, D-transfer, and maybe potentially per capita, because that's paid by residents that live in the city. The other ones are more business related, and technically are capped under the General Assembly's statute. So there's some flexibility on 3 taxes. One thing I just wanted to state that Krista talked about relative to parliamentary procedure in the conduct of council meetings that maybe home rule charters don't necessarily address. That could be addressed, maybe generally listed in the body of the home rule charter, and then elaborated upon in the administrative code, where it could say that the council, the governing body, shall adopt policies and procedures for the conduct of meetings relative to a parliamentary procedure. But you could do that now. And it doesn't necessarily have to be Robert's Rules of Order. It could be the Star Spangled Banner Rules of Order, so to speak. As long as you adopt by the governing body, by resolution, some policies and procedures on the conduct of your meetings. You know, and how you conduct your meetings and make motions and second motions and allow for discussion and things like that. Robert's Rules is an actual document, book that you follow, and a lot of people mistaken that as you have to follow it, or that's the only document that, or the only parliamentary procedures that are available or exist to follow. That's not the case. So don't be mistaken that you have to follow those, and that's the only path to go down. You could make up your own, technically, and come up with your own, that the governing body could come up with. They could do it now.
It doesn't have to be in the charter, it can be in the administrative codes.
Yes.
Which the administrative code is written by council, correct?
Or it could be proposed by the Government Study Commission in a draft, if you want to do that, or it's put in play once the charter is adopted by the people, and then you have that transition period, and during the transition period, a committee may be formed to do things among, including drafting a draft of the administrative code, as well as putting the
But the
transition
council can
plan.
amend the administrative code.
That's right. Yeah, because it's a
Whereas the charter, they would have to put a referendum on the ballot or change the charter.
yes, and that change to the charters, the change to the charter, amending that may have to wait a few years before you actually do that.
Just a general question going forward, what would your recommendations be? Our schedule here is basically, we've talked to the city quite extensively, all the department heads and those sorts of things to this point. Now we're sort of in a study period of the actual home rule, its provisions and other home rule municipalities. We presumably sometime in December will take our vote on whether to recommend a home rule charter. Along those other timelines, we also need we had a budget approved by the Altoona City Council for our commission
What is
through
that?
this year.
How much is that?
Like $2,500, I think, or somewhere like
I
that.
was
Yeah.
just curious.
Yeah, no, that was to take us through this year for
Okay.
secretary and any other costs that we would incur. But looking towards next year, if we should choose to go forward with the home rule charter, what types of consultants, advisors, solicitor do you think we'll need? And what conversation do we need to be having with the city about what that budget may be for those services in order to draft a charter, should we go that direction?
Well, you have the option of continuing to call upon individuals who you're utilizing now for information and insight and perspectives on the direction you want to go once you take the formal vote, which may be minimal cost. You may want to bring on someone who has extensive experience in municipal management to help you draft the charter, or to actually draft it and then you review sections of it per meeting. Or you may want to, as a whole, or a committee form, to draft, put draft proposals together, and then eventually come up with a draft charter that then you all review and comment on, and come up with something that you think you're comfortable with, and then have it reviewed both by legal experts and non-legal, municipal people for review and comment, all within a specified time frame. So some may cost, the legal review and the non-legal review may cost some money, and some of the experts that you may call in may cost money as well. I think the Luzerne County, they just recently adopted a home rule charter, I think last year. They called in somebody that used to work for with the International City Management Association, City County Management Association. They used him as a consultant to help draft chapters of the county charter, and then the charter reviewed, the commission reviewed and commented on each chapter, and then it was finalized and then put before the voters. But it always goes through a legal review. You definitely need that. So I can't say money-wise what you think you're going to need, but that's something to think about.
Would you have a list of some of those resources, or at least be able to put us in contact with people to see if there's some references or people that have done this in the past that may be a good source for those different tasks?
I can put some feelers out to get some contact names and.
Does DCED do a review of the draft charter for it?
Yes, we've done reviews. We have reviewed and commented on charters, yes. I would find out if that's something appropriate, with our situation with Altoona, being Act 47. So I'll find out about that. But I know that we've reviewed them in the past, yes.
I think our budget when we did the transition committee 25 years ago was about $5,000 for the year, and it took us about a year to do that. Even after the first referendum came about, where they wanted to change the form of government, then the transition committee took over. It took us about a year to come to a consensus, but it was $5,000. It was in that neck of the woods. Now
That was just transition.
yeah, that's right. We wrote the administrative code.
Yeah, but not. Okay.
Well, both of those will need,
We wrote it.
both of those will need to be written and reviewed at some point.
What I would suggest is, once you take a vote whether to go with no change or to pursue a home rule charter, since you already have the benefit of various home rule charters in front of you, I would identify the provisions, the features, the qualities, the traits, the characteristics of those charters that you believe are a fit for Altoona, that you feel is compatible with Altoona, that you believe is an attribute for Altoona, and put at least some skeletal framework together in terms of a draft charter.
So scratch out Allentown and put Altoona.
Well, a lot of times, ladies and gentlemen, that's how home rule charters work. None of this stuff is copyrighted. There's no pride in authorship. They pick and choose what they like in other charters and see what works for their respective community.
Well,
That's
yeah,
what this is all about.
You're gonna have to start somewhere to get the bulk of it done.
Yes,
And then just
yes.
fight off the.
You don't have to recreate the wheel. There's no need to do that. So pick and choose the best and the brightest of what you think would fit in the Altoona model. And at least get that put together so that you see so you begin to see what it looks like. Because this is your creation that you're putting forth, to put before the people. So that those that you bring in to work with will have something to look at, respond to, and to,
So you're saying don't bring them in too early in the process. Get
right, yeah,
a rough draft of where you want, but now you need to make sure you didn't miss any parts.
correct.
That everything
Exactly.
works and as per the law.
Exactly.
So that's excellent advice. However, we haven't voted yet, and we're not sure we're going to write a charter.
Well, that's correct. I said,
So
when you
I would
vote,
like to ask you, if I sent you email and I said, how can changing the city's current form of government to home rule accomplish either an increase in revenue or a decrease in expense, and asked you to itemize in 2 columns, itemize those actions, would you respond to that?
well, my role here is to provide neutral and partial information and to be middle of the road, because we don't want to take a position on whether you should go either way. We're
It's
information.
either increase in revenue or decrease in expense based on your experience with home rule municipalities.
Well, based upon my experience with home rule municipalities, you have the opportunity to look at what we've talked about already, what information is available in front of you right now. Looking at revenue enhancement based upon what home rule provides to you, and looking at opportunities, whether or not it makes sense to combine or consolidate existing operating departments or existing operations. Does that make sense?
Would
That-
there,
Not to me, that, if you're looking at a spreadsheet, you need numbers or something more specific. The opportunity to, and that's what Kristen said too. It gives you an opportunity for flexibility, which sounds to me like, well, okay, fine, but we're already under Act 47, and that is supposed to bring us out of some sort of deficit. And the reason we're here discussing this is because we don't have enough money. If we had enough money, we would not be doing this. And if the city had
Well,
enough money.
keep in mind that communities that are in Act 47 are in that situation because of forces that took control of the community that were beyond that community's control
And how
for the
does
most
home
part.
rule make any difference is what I'm asking.
Well, home rule, and Kristen made a point that it professionalizes the operation.
And how does that increase revenue or decrease expense?
It puts people into place that have orientation, experience, and expertise in helping to utilize what resources you have in the most productive ways. You've already got good department heads that are struggling to do that. So in a sense, you're continuing to do that. You have management now. So home rule, I think, would allow that to happen, maybe to a greater extent. That you're institutionalizing positions that allow you to continue the professionalization of your organization, of the municipal structure. And you're providing greater flexibility to the governing body to utilize the situation that you're in to draw upon the tax base.
I want you to know that I really respect your attempt to answer that, but if I were to send you this email, would you be able to delineate increase in revenue by any dollar amount that you're familiar with, or a decrease in expense in any of these cities that you're familiar with?
No, and I'm not sure anybody can except the people who are directly involved as the manager or the finance director, because they're directly intimately involved in the day-to-day operations of the municipalities. I mean, in a sense, you're asking me an unfair
Well,
question.
that's what the citizens, we're going to ask people to vote for this. and I'm gonna say it's gonna increase professionalism, and it's gonna do this, give us flexibility, we're gonna increase your taxes. That's how we're gonna get more money, we're gonna increase taxes.
Well, we would give the ability to eliminate, for instance, the caps on real estate
Okay,
taxes.
so we increase taxes.
I would, you know,
But also on the other end of it, it gives you the ability, as I understand it, to be fairly creative in combining the.
Give me an example.
Without saying I'm advocating for it, you could form the public safety department where you would have codes undertaken by the fire department. And so instead of having just full-time firefighters, you would have perhaps, again, I'm just trying to give an example, 7 firefighters, new hires designated to also serve as code officers.
Okay, so decrease in expense.
And vast increase in service levels, because we heard the codes department is down to minimal numbers. So codes and the appearance of the city, the enforcement would rise dramatically under something like that. I'm not saying
Well, that's an example, but everybody who came here to talk to us said the city needs more money. That's what they said, the city needs more money.
They've also said, and no question the city needs more money, they also need to be providing services that have been.
Reduced because of the decrease in expense because the city doesn't have enough money.
And I think what I heard him say is there's a mechanism with home rule that allows you to create those efficiencies so that perhaps you can increase the services without necessarily.
I hear that, it's like
But it's up to us to be creative and come up with that stuff. That's why we got elected. That's why we've got to fish through this and figure it out.
yeah, and I'm at a loss, other than increased taxes, I don't know.
I keep hearing the increased tax, and I have a slight problem with that, is that inflation increases everything. You know, cost of a loaf of bread is a lot more now than it was 10 years ago, and we all know everything costs more than it did 10 years ago. But the amazing thing is that property tax in the city has gone down in inflation-adjusted dollars since 10 years ago because of the lack of the county to do what they should be doing. So, although you may call it increasing your taxes, I would say it allows the city to go to a tax model that keeps pace with inflation. I don't call that increasing. I call that keeping.
Home rule?
Yeah, I
sort of
don't
like
call that increasing. I call that keeping pace with inflation.
that? Okay.
All right? And so it allows us to do that.
Because the cap goes away, then therefore they can raise the tax at the pace of inflation without a reassessment, because the reassessment becomes irrelevant at that point, other than any injustice between two unfairly assessed properties. That wouldn't go away, but theoretically, if everything was assessed correctly at the 50-something, whatever the assessment date was, you could erase without the...
Well,
Well,
it
also-
said about their earned income tax.
Yeah, it also allows us to go to a method of taxing, which maybe doesn't even need to be tweaked every year because it automatically keeps pace with inflation because of the type of tax it is.
And I can't.
You know, an income tax automatically does that.
You're exactly right. Our real estate has been stagnant in value anyway, but, just like our firemen and our police and all our city employees' wages go up, if you're taxing on earned income tax, as everyone's wages go up, the tax revenues are going up just because the wages are going up. That's not happening in real estate because we have flood. So to the extent we can, I think potentially do a great service in de-emphasizing real estate tax and moving more onto earned income.
Didn't we hear where some of them eliminated the real estate tax?
We'll never get there just because of the dollars here, but you're right, Bob. I mean, there's ways to shift it around so that the tax isn't necessarily going up, but the value of what is being taxed is increasing. That's not happening with real estate in our city.
See, what I've seen in a lot of home rule communities where there's no language in charters is that when there's movement in tax rates, it's always, in most cases, it's with the EIT. It's not real estate. It's with the earned income tax because, as Blaine's saying, the earned income tax, generally speaking, is a better barometer of one's ability to pay based upon a fixed value of a piece of property that one has to pay a real estate tax on, which normally stagnates unless there's a sale price, and then it's maybe re-examined. But income changes from year to year in some ways, and since 2008, it's kind of been minimized, but income has slowly gone up, generally speaking, for those that are working, and it's a dire situation for those that are unemployed. But generally speaking, for home rule communities, when rates change, it's usually on the earned income, and it's slight, because slight increases in EIT generate enough revenue to keep pace with inflation, which is normally at 2%, generally speaking. One thing I also wanted to bring up with respect to your comments, which are legitimate, of course, because you want to be mindful of the revenue expense ratio. The overall picture that Act 47 tries to achieve overall to bring about success is the growth in the tax base and the stabilization of the tax base upon which the service delivery system is based. And that is growth, development, and that overall is where recovery lies. That's really where the focal point needs to be, and is really focused now, and has been, through redevelopment efforts with Pat Smith and others. It's a full court press that has to continue in that vein. And a lot of times, home rule can help free up some of the constraints that are within the city government to provide better partnerships and less politicization of the benefits of revenue becoming available through better partnerships and just through better programs that can be put into place, better economic tools, working with the public-private partnerships that are in place now that can be built upon. So I'm looking at it maybe in a more macro view as well as a micro view with respect to what needs to happen with this recovery effort within the context of the parallel activity of the Home Rule Government Study Commission.
Well, if we were a business and we were making a recommendation to change the nature of the way the business operates, at some point somebody in charge would say, how much is that going to generate in new revenue, or how much is it going to decrease in expense? Now, somebody's got to know these things, because how many municipalities are already there? They've already done this.
Done what, home rule?
Yeah, home rule.
Looking to maintain revenue but have to cut costs, but still put a service delivery system together that meets the needs of the community, and the people are still satisfied with what they're getting. I mean, every community is at that point. That's what they're doing. Even the more well-to-do ones, they're struggling with all that too.
And if you're running a business, I would say you're introducing a new product. You may have some ideas of sales, but nobody is definite on whether or not your new product's going to sell. Nobody is going to know
No,
whether
but you'd have projections.
opening, you'd have best guess estimates or nothing more.
Based on some market demographics.
Well, I think you're in a much less scientific area than.
I think the connection to the business model that you're talking about is a bit of a stretch in our situation, because we would be writing, if we're going to propose a home rule charter, we'd be writing the charter, unless we were literally talking about writing, saying we're going to go to an EITC or something like that, and we're actually going to say what the number is, and we're actually going to write that in the charter, which I think is probably a bad idea. Then we wouldn't know what the numbers are. All we would be doing is saying we're going to give council the ability to do this.
We don't need to know the numbers. We need to have somebody tell us what their numbers were and are now after the implementation of home rule.
I think it's going to be difficult since most of the home rule conversions took place during the Carter administration.
Well, I mean, if we're going to...
Well, I think the way that the notion from, I think we've already heard that there's no way it's a magic bullet that's going to be the answer. But is it a help or one more tool in the toolbox towards getting out of Act 47?
I would agree with that if it gives us opportunity for flexibility and for these things.
And it may only be a small move of the
If
needle.
we're going
in
to go to the
positive
voters,
direction.
though, and say, well, we recommend we increase your taxes, which is what a lot of people are going to hear, then,
No one can pretell the future. It's up to the governing body, given the situation that they're confronted with and the dynamics of the time. And home rule can provide an opportunity for a governing body where they may increase revenue. At the same time, every governing body is sensitive to the need to have to increase a tax rate. And they always look for ways to economize. I mean, I deal with over 600 communities in my Southwest region, and none of them enjoy raising taxes. None of them. And they're always looking at ways to cut costs.
Let me ask you, if this isn't actually in our purview, but let's imagine that City of Altoona stays in Act 47 for, God forbid, forever. There is, the state, I don't know who exactly does it, but they approve higher tax rates, millage rates, or whatever it is. So if we stay in Act 47, it's very likely that tax rates are going to continue to go up, right? I mean, is that...
It all depends on the performance of the city relative to the revenues generated, the cost to operate the city and the service delivery system, the collective bargaining agreements, the pension liabilities, and what the recovery plan says.
All right, so given the projections that we can foresee in the near future, I'm seeing those kind of projections, our deficit is just getting larger and larger in the foreseeable future, which would seem to indicate that we're going to have somewhere that revenue has to be matched, so that means higher tax rates. Is that a fair statement?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the city is becoming more effective in trying to work within its revenue availability, and they're working within balanced budgets. I mean, that's what the recovery plan is projecting, balanced budgets. Even though there's revenue enhancement, the overall plan is to wean the city off the higher extraordinary tax revenue, revenue raising measures under Act 47 to bring you back to just the regular rates that you have normally. That's the game plan. And to have balanced budgets.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. You were saying that obviously Act 47, the real only way out is through growth. Okay, economic growth,
That's
so that
the
more
best
people
way out.
want to move into the city and there are jobs here. I think that the city manager, the former city manager, Joe Egan, pretty much said it best, that that's not something that's in the foreseeable future. What do you guys think? I'm asking you guys. What do you think is the potential of people fleeing the city as a result of taxes going up and seeing a loss of?
It depends on how we present it. If we keep saying we're here to raise taxes, you have to sell what it is people are buying.
Which I totally agree.
And I think you can reconfigure the taxes so that at least initially it's revenue neutral. To me, the best chance for growth in the revenue is going to be de-emphasizing that damn real estate tax and getting it on something that's more fair and provides an opportunity for growth. And that's, to me, it's the earned income tax. That can be revenue neutral in the first year. But the reality is real estate values are not growing around here. We've got plenty of problems with the county. We all know them on the reassessment. But if we can change the emphasis, then it'll be revenue neutral the first year. And as people's incomes grow, as everyone hopefully does, and mine's going up the last few years, I doubt there's anyone sitting at this table who's gone down much. Then the tax base increases, and it increases in a much fairer manner than putting all the burden on that stupid real estate tax. So I think it's a matter of educating people what we need to do and telling them, here are the services. We got to pay for them somehow. It's been cut. They can't be cut any longer. So here's our fairest plan to make certain the city can still grow and thrive. And it's going to have to be this. If we educate people on it, then it's their choice. But if we just keep pounding this drum of we're going to be raising everybody's taxes, then we're going to get the result that foreshadows.
Well, and maybe we just be honest and say that with a decrease in population as significant as we've seen, there is really no other alternative.
And I think people will get it. I think people knew that going in a little bit when they voted for this commission. And it's just a matter of understanding, do you want cops? Do you want firemen? Do do you want paved roads, or do you want to be driving on gravel with only state police protection and hoping your neighbor doesn't fall asleep with a cigarette in his couch? People, I think, can understand it at the municipal level. We've got to give them the credit, but we also have to give them the opportunity, and it's our responsibility to make certain they understand this as it goes forward. It's that simple. Or we can just keep trying to scare everybody so they vote against it. Whatever we want to do.
Well, let me play devil's advocate just for the sake of it. How would you deliver that message? You just do the EIT.
It is more fair, it is more equitable.
Okay.
And so this is going to be, let's just imagine where we've just completely flopped and we're no longer dependent on real estate tax at all, and now we're dependent on the EIT. We've now moved into an equitable world. You're benefited by building a house in Altoona versus in Logan, because they're going to be dealing with real estate taxes. So if you build a brand new, really nice house, you're going to get hammered on real estate taxes. Whereas here, you're not. So this is a great place to build a house, to come and do that. So if we get more people building houses, I'm staring up at that map, and let's start getting a lot more houses in the parts of Altoona that are further away from Plink Road, then it also means that we're going to see more commercial development. On Chestnut Avenue, we'll see a lot more commercial development on this end of town as well, because there's going to be more people, more residents. So that's the growth, and that's the growth that gets the city out of Act 47.
It's not on, unless, do we have other questions for Mike, or? The hour's drawing nigh.
I will get names of contact people, resource people that may be able to advise you relative to the drafting of a home rule charter. I'll get that to Linda. Okay?
And also potentially legal review, same
Right.
thing.
Right, municipal consultant types and
Or lawyers.
legal advisors. Okay. I'll get that
How's
to
that budget all going to work not that we have a crazy room full of folks here, but if we say we can get this done for $150,000 in the budget, I think there's two guys back there that'll probably be coming out swinging at us.
Well, I was going to ask, because of the budgetary rules, we have to start talking about the budget tomorrow night, and then as of the first council meeting and only council meeting scheduled in November, that's when we have to officially open it. So I'm sitting here in my head thinking, okay, I'm willing to propose in the expenditure side X amount for our government study commission to have set aside for writing the charter if they go that direction. So now I got to figure out, okay, how much is that?
There's a whole section in the handbook on this subject and what it's cost some other. So there's a whole section on finances and what it's cost. Now, to the degree that helps you, I mean, the population range for ours, 40,000 to 99 or 11, done in that category, and it was $8,600 was what 11 charters in our range spent.
And what year was that, or average was
That was-
calculated?
I mean, this is from 72 to 80, so take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's
Like I
what
said, ours, I mean,
But
what
we
was
also,
it?
we
Is
don't
it inflation
know,
adjusted as well?
No, it was not. That's the raw numbers from 72 to 80. People with our population, that's what they spent on writing.
Like I said, ours was $5,000 25 years ago. So do the math.
See, I'm thinking 25,000.
Well, and the other thing you got to remember here, and the largest cost for these was printing. The largest cost was printing and distribution. So another thing we have to look at is electronic means aren't necessarily, even though we can put everything on the website, it's not recognized as the ability. So we either have to print it in a full-page newspaper with a summary and say you can pick up a copy at City Hall. They mentioned that some of them sent copies to every single resident, which would obviously be way
well, we have the internet now.
Yeah.
The other two elements I would suggest you consider is anything could be moved from the contingency as long as you're comfortable. I was semi-joking about the big number, but it sounds like you're thinking along the right lines. And the other thing we don't know these numbers include is in-kind services. And I think it'd be nice to have a discussion at the council level as to, you know, what about letting Larry, as part of his service to the city, and that way, whether you can get that covered under his contract or,
Actually, we had, under the old form, we did use the old solicitor as
Yeah.
an advisor.
right, so, I mean, being able to deliver the solicitor to us could probably save us a lot of costs, but, you know, Larry might not like that.
Yeah.
But I think that's a discussion I would suggest you guys have with him and figure that out, because that, to me, makes the most sense, since he has so much knowledge of the city and a lot of the local municipalities anyway.
So it's page 19 and 20 are where they go into some of the costs that we could incur and how we're to negotiate with the city on paying for those.
Does that help?
Yeah, I should probably get a copy of that handbook you guys have.
It's on our website. Do you have access to
Yep.
our
Perfect,
newpa.com website?
perfect, that'll work.
I think Linda might send a link to it
Yeah,
It's probably on the, it's on the.
It's actually on our web, it's on your
Study
website.
Commission, on
Good.
Government Study Commission
It's
on
on
our
our
website.
website. Okay,
And the
good.
contracts, by the way, you're looking at revenue and cuts. All three contracts are on the website also. So some of the things in those contracts are due to the third-class city code requiring. Now, the only one I know of is like 21 sick days for the fire personnel.
You mean Act 47 mandates?
No, the third-class city code mandates that home rule could lessen the expense there.
That's what the chief.
And my only point there was from a bargaining standpoint, the third class city code sets a basement. So they don't even have to negotiate, they're negotiating from there up. You take away that basement, then it just allows the negotiation.
That's the flexibility that you.
Yeah, so it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to change, because whatever they negotiated into the bargaining, you know, may still be 21, even though you remove that artificial mandate of the third class city code. It removes the limits and allows completely open negotiation. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a change.
Any other public comment? You any questions, Bill? Do you want to?
Yeah, I didn't understand, there was some talk about it, and I think it kind of got cut short, but can a commuter tax continue for a municipality that goes out of Act 47 and into home rule?
No, the answer is no, because home rule municipalities are not permitted to tax non-residents beyond 1%, which
Because there, I understand what you're saying, and I thought that was the answer before, but I think couple weeks ago, somebody said, I forget who it was.
That's what the confusion was, is whether home rule would take that away from even help come out under the Act 47.
Right.
But the understanding is whether we stay under the option plan or go home rule, it stays in place because of Act 47. When Act 47 goes away, either way, it goes away as well.
Okay, so that was my old understanding, and that's still true.
when Act 47 goes away, regardless of whether you're optional plan, rural, or just pure municipal government, you can no longer have a non-resident / commuter tax. When Act 47 goes away.
Okay, and then this one's for Wayne, if he wants to say. You were saying about you'd like the city to be, you were talking about having a strong mayor, and that possibly making it easier for the city to act like the 10th place city in the state. How so?
You don't have any, it's amazing how little influence we have on a statewide basis because we don't have a full-time mayor. I think Joe Weekland said every mayor that's ever served under this form has complained about that fact. And I certainly was one of those.
What I mean is, how would a full-time mayor provide that info? I mean, I kind of can guess.
For instance, I would go to conferences on my own dime. So I would take 3 days off of work. I was in Lancaster for 2 or 3 days at a time, meeting with every other mayor that was there. Was a full-time mayor getting paid to be there. I was there because I was fairly stupid and just in giving it up and doing it. And they couldn't believe I was there, frankly. It's impossible to have that kind of input with other municipalities and impact on a statewide level unless you're at the table. And it's not happening now through nobody's fault. I mean, I'm not saying, you know, others should be there. I did it, but I couldn't do it at the level that I should have been doing it or could have been doing it if it was a full-time position.
And we get-
So that's just one example.
Yeah.
If we're privileged enough to have Mayor Pulowski here from Allentown, I think you'll really get your question answered well, Bill.